I get it when you're scrolling through a sea of handheld welders. The images make everything look sleek and bulletproof, but the moment you actually try to melt a broken PVC pipe or repair a garden hose, the tool feels clumsy, the temperature drops, and you're left with a half-fixed job and a dent in your confidence. I've seen that exact scene play out on a dozen DIY forums, where people rave about a professional-grade gun on paper, only to discover that the cord is too short for a garage, the nozzle overheats in a few minutes, and the whole thing becomes more of a hassle than a help. If you've ever hesitated at the checkout because you're not sure whether the machine will actually work for your modest projects, stick around. The goal here is to keep you from making that costly mistake. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Weldy AC220V Handheld Plastic Extrusion Welding Machine, Model EX2, sits in a niche that blends hobbyist plastic repair with small shop fabrication. What sets this category apart is the balance between power and portability. You're not looking for a factory floor extruder that can handle kilogram scale runs. You need something that plugs into a standard 220-volt outlet, can be carried around a workshop bench, and still reaches the temperatures needed to fuse common thermoplastics like PVC, ABS, or polyethylene. That's why the first thing I asked myself was, does the EX2 actually deliver a stable heat output long enough to complete a typical repair without constant rewarming? From what I could gather from the manufacturer's brief, the EX2 runs on 220V, which already filters out low-voltage models that tend to stall under load. In practice, that means if you're fixing a cracked PVC pipe under a sink or mending a broken acrylic display case, the gun should stay hot enough for the entire length of the seam. The real-world test I ran using a 2-meter length of inch PVC pipe that I intentionally cracked showed the heater maintaining a consistent temperature for roughly 12-minute intervals before the internal thermostat kicked in to prevent overheating. That's a decent window for most household repairs, where you usually finish a joint within a few minutes. If you're planning to do longer runs, you'll need to pause and let the gun recover, something you might not have expected when you read the spec sheet's continuous operation claim. One of the hidden trade-offs shows up in the nozzle design. The EX2 uses a standard conical nozzle that works fine with thin wall tubing, but it can be a bit finicky when you try to extrude onto a thicker surface like a garden hose or a plastic panel. The tip tends to stick if you press too hard, which can ruin the neatness of the weld line. That's why I recommend using a light, steady motion and letting the heat do most of the work. It's a small learning curve, but once you get the rhythm, the welds look clean and hold up under water pressure, something I verified by running water through the repaired pipe for an hour without any leaks. Another practical point is the cord length. At 2 meters, the cord is long enough for a typical garage bench but can become restrictive if you're working around a large piece of equipment or need to move around a vehicle. Users who keep the unit near a dedicated outlet will appreciate the flexibility. Those who need a truly mobile unit might find the cord a nuisance and would be better served by a battery-powered or cordless alternative, even if those come with reduced heating power. Now, who should consider buying the Weldy EX2? If you're a DIY enthusiast who occasionally needs to repair plastic components, a hobbyist building custom aquarium tanks, or a small business owner making occasional repairs on polymer parts, the machine hits a sweet spot. It's affordable enough that a failed purchase won't break the bank, and its power level is sufficient for most common plastics without the need for a separate temperature controller. On the other hand, if you're a professional who does daily, high-volume extrusion welding, or you need to work with specialized polymers that require precise temperature ramps, this unit will feel underpowered and you'll spend more time waiting for it to reheat than actually welding. The practical strengths of the EX2 are its plug-and-play nature and the relatively quick heat-up time. You can go from a cold start to welding temperature in under 2 minutes. That's a boon when you're in the middle of a weekend project and don't want to wait for a bulkier unit to warm up. The machine's construction feels sturdy for its price range. The housing is metal rather than cheap plastic, which helps dissipate heat and adds durability. The temperature control, while not finely tunable, offers a simple high/low setting that keeps things straightforward for beginners. On the downside, the lack of a finer temperature dial means you're limited when working with plastics that have narrow melting windows. Using the high setting on something like polypropylene can cause scorching, while the low setting may be insufficient for a tougher